Okay, beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Hitting the Keynote. And as usual, I'm excited. I'm always excited, but I'm excited again to have Chris Haroon. And actually, Chris, I should have asked you before I started the call, am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Correct, Haroon. It rhymes with baboon. Yeah. You're saying it right. Some people call it heron, heroin. Haroon is perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go with that. Thank you so much. And look, there's a lovely tip for everybody on communicating ideas. Make sure you pronounce the name of your guest before you go live. So wonderful. As always, a reminder as to why this podcast is in existence. It's to explain complicated subject matter to a wide audience. Today, with the internet, all things digital, the world is a complicated place. And so in our lives, we always have the opportunity to converse and explain things to people that are complicated that we understand. And if we can help you find your voice on this podcast, then I've done a great service to humanity, I think. So, Chris, we're going to get started. The premise that kicked off this podcast is the fact I work in cybersecurity, okay, and I'm a keynote speaker for cyber. So I can explain things fairly well. Now, I don't want to say it's natural for me because I've worked on this, but what I have observed is that the majority of CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, who are my customers, their complaint is, look, Eddie, I spend a lot of money on cyber awareness programs. I teach my people, don't click on unknown links. And the very next day, there's a fat cat tripping over a lazy mouse video, and they go to click on the link. Why? Communication is the issue. And I'll give you one more example, Chris, to kind of set the expectation, and then I'm going to jump in with all sorts of beautiful questions for you. A very well-known car manufacturer got hacked because storage guy didn't close what's called the S3 container in AWS. That's immaterial to our audience members what it is. There was a button that storage guy could have toggled. Now, what's interesting about the tsunami that came on this poor guy is that we told you to toggle that button. It's like, did you know? You told this poor guy, hey, make sure you toggle the button. It's kind of important. Is that enough? Is that enough communicating the importance of the fact that this company could get hacked if you don't do your job? I don't think so. I think the onus is on the corporation to explain better. And that's what I want our dialogue to be about today. And I've chosen you, Chris, because, of course, you work in finance, right? And finance is complicated. So how does one communicate the concept of complex financial things to a wide audience and to the layperson? Let's start with a very broad question like that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Thanks again for having me on the show. I appreciate it. So I think the best communicator when it comes to the finance industry is Warren Buffett. Now, Warren Buffett graduated from Columbia University, and he also has a certificate from the Dale Carnegie Institute in public speaking. Oh. And on his wall is not his Columbia degree. It's the Dale Carnegie certificate of completion. And Warren Buffett has said over and over and over again that he wouldn't be as successful as he is today if he didn't learn how to speak effectively, especially with complex financial topics. And so whenever we see Warren Buffett interviewed on television, we never walk away thinking, gosh, I'm confused now. You know, he has a way of really dumbing it down so people like me can thoroughly understand it.
I agree. That's right. Yeah. I listened to him too. I mean, it's fantastic. What do you think he picked up? So he's proud of that, and I'm really impressed. Yeah. Years ago, I read How to Win Friends and Influence People. Brilliant book. I mean, that's just, every kid should read that book. So what do you think he picked up in that course, or can you speculate, and in your experiences, what kind of traits and techniques and skills that might have served him well?
Yeah, I would say just putting himself out there and practicing a lot in front of large groups of people. You know, it does take a lot of practice. And even Steve Jobs, one of his first interviews, and you can search for it on YouTube, he was incredibly nervous and not that well spoken. But as Malcolm Gladwell said, if you practice anything for 10,000 hours, you can get extraordinarily good at it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to practice 10,000 hours to learn about public speaking and how to communicate effectively, but you should do it as often as you can. And I used to have my own column in Inc. magazine on the side, and I was a horrible writer. And my editor told me, he said, Chris, stop trying to write like you're writing for The Economist. always think of communicating and writing at an 8th grade level, which is easy for me, right?
Okay.
So keep it simplistic and less is always more.
Right, right. Yeah, that's very cool, actually. The old acronym KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Okay, fantastic. Right, so that's interesting, though, because when you said that, writing at, let's say, a more advanced level is challenging for you, and yet you're an excellent communicator. You're on camera all the time. You're on the mainstream media. So why does the writing skill set not translate over to the spoken skill set, right? I mean, that's an observation.
Yeah. It's an interesting question. Less is always more. Whenever you answer questions in front of the media or on when you're giving presentations, you never give them everything. You give them a little bit, and then they'll follow up with another question. Always.
Okay, I hadn't thought of that. That's really interesting. Now, why are you able to control the narrative with the media? I'm a little bit afraid of the media, hey? So I don't speak to them very often, but when I do, I'm really cautious about it. And usually we have another employee in the room who's watching me, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. That's a great topic for hitting the keynote, is addressing the media.
Yeah.
Top things to be concerned about. Should I be afraid talking to the media like I am?
So what I recommend, I've worked at a lot of big companies in the past, like Accenture, Goldman Sachs, et cetera. And usually what happens is, if you get a call from the media, you tell your supervisor first. And the way that interviews tend to work and panels is that you can always ask ahead of time, what questions are you going to ask? And you can prepare ahead of time.
Right.
And if you're put on the spot regarding your company, instead of owning up to a mistake, if you're not sure what to say, the tagline you can use is, well, here at XYZ Corporation, we pride ourselves over the past couple of decades on offering the best possible customer service.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's right. Right. So you just respond with a generic statement that you would have memorized in advance.
Yes. Yeah.
Should I be afraid of the media? I mean, it's such clickbait headline world. I mean, am I right to be cautious of them? Or are they friendly?
It all depends.
Right.
It all depends. And you can always do research on whoever is going to be interviewing you. For example, whenever I hire somebody or I'm about to hire somebody, I don't ask for the references, but I go on LinkedIn. I find out all of my first and sometimes second degree contacts that know that person. And I do my research as well. Is this person worth talking to or not? And I think at Checkpoint, was it Kip?
Yeah.
Investor Relations. Yeah.
Sure. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He's a great guy, incredibly well-spoken. And I advise anybody working at Checkpoint to ask him as well. Sorry, Kip, if I got a bunch of emails coming to you, but he knows. He's been media trained thoroughly.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I sat with him in New York at an investor relations gig one time just to watch him perform. And yeah, you're right. He's excellent. And of course, we have to do all our quarterly earnings announcements, and he governs all of that stuff. What's also interesting, an observation I remember hearing from one of the investors on one of our quarterly calls was simply this: Kip, you're great because you actually get back to us, right? He always fulfills his word. And I think that helps make, now in this case, the audience isn't media, but it helps make people more trustworthy, more friendly, right? Because they've got a relationship with you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I want to talk about how you became the best rated instructor on Udemy. Yeah. Right. That's interesting, right? There's thousands. Aren't there thousands of instructors? How did you swim to the blue ocean? Do you know what I mean by that analogy? Right? Red ocean. Yeah. How did you get there?
So I would say I'm very humbled that things have worked out okay for me. But when I was younger, I actually failed accounting in undergrad. I got a D, right? Okay. So, and the reason I did was because I was memorizing stuff. And you can't do well in business if you memorize. You have to thoroughly understand it. And so I found a way to explain things in a more visual sense using a lot of props, which helps exceptionally well, humbly. It's kind of like show and tell when we were younger in school. We don't remember what the teacher taught us, but we remember the props people brought in. I'm a very visual person.
What are you using for props?
Oh my gosh, I have a ton of props here. So this is crazy, but I'm teaching a course I'm about to record on futures and derivatives. And it is a complicated topic. Now, the size of the global derivatives market is 6 times bigger than the stock market. And so I'm teaching futures with wheat. And so how you deliver wheat to the market and somebody else buys it to incorporate in their products, for example, right? And so this is a General Mills. I'll get to the bottom line quickly, I promise.
This is great. No, this is fantastic. I love this.
It's different, but I bought this on eBay. You can buy anything on eBay, and your viewers will never forget what I'm about to say. It's crazy, but it is what it is. So General Mills, ticker GIS, they buy wheat, and they have to engage in futures contracts. And so this here was when Michael Phelps was on the cover of Wheaties years ago. But in 2012, he got caught for doing drugs. So he's not on the cover anymore. And so I think they should change this to winners don't do drugs. Champions do.
That's great. That's really good. I love that. and I'm tempted to second it. All right, that's really cool. So that's great. So you just basically told us that futures derivatives. Now the derivatives part of that. So let's get into that lesson. This is really good. So is the derivative for wheat in that analogy?
It is. And so let me explain it with another prop, which I just got custom made. So the size of the global stock market cap is $90 trillion. The size of the derivatives market globally is $600 trillion. And so derivatives is a lot of things. Okay. So under the derivative umbrella, you've got options, futures, you've got swaps, you got CDC, you got a lot of different instruments.
Right.
All comes under the derivatives umbrella, so to speak. And so it just...
Oh, really?
That's what I'm teaching right now. And other products I'm using for this course, which is a lot of fun, is I'm teaching people that it's like a yo-yo, right? The more volatile a stock is, the more expensive it is to get insurance. Right. So anyway, it's just one of the many props I'm using for this course.
You know, and what's brilliant about that is it's fun.
Yeah, I have a good time doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I come back to this quite a lot. It seems to be a bit of a theme for me these days where it seems our biology influences our thinking so much more than we used to understand. So when you're having fun in somebody's lesson, you get oxytocin released into your system. Yes. It releases cortisol, disappears from the system. You're enjoying yourself. When you've got cortisol, of course, your body moves blood from your head to your extremities for fight or flight. That's not good for learning. Right. But oxytocin, the love drug, right? Champions do drugs, and oxytocin is the best one. Moves us into a better frame of mind.
Yeah. And what helps me to public speak a lot is in my office here, my studio, my home, I got rid of my chair because people on my YouTube calls were complaining I sounded tired. So I'm always standing. And as Tony Robbins said, motion creates emotion. So what I do is I get 20,000 steps a day in this office.
You're on a treadmill.
On my walker. Yeah.
That's
it helps out.
Cool.
It helps well. And Sir Richard Branson, he's 70. He said he feels like he's 20 and he's in the best shape of his life. And I did research on him yesterday. And he plays tennis for an hour in the morning and an hour at night.
Really?
And every hour of tennis is 10,000 steps. So I get my 20,000 steps in the office like this. And I recommend everybody do this if you can, especially those working from home, because if you do this, it feels like you just woke up all day. You're 10 times more productive. You're taking a lot more oxygen into your heart, your brain, whatnot, and you can think and speak gooder too.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. This is what we're looking for. These are fantastic, what I call hacks. You know, another one. So I've got my stand-up desk here. I haven't got a walker yet. You know what I'll be doing on Amazon right after this podcast.
Yeah, it's
another thing that I do because I sat for so many years, and sitting is the new smoking. Off topic here, but a great tip. I love this one. I put a bar in my basement and I hang off of it when I'm making phone calls, and it gives traction to my spine.
Oh, I love it. So I love that. Yeah.
I was at a place where we were talking surgery. It was that bad at some point. And that's what made it go away. The thousands of dollars on all these therapies that I was trying, just hanging on a bar for a few minutes of the day on phone calls. And now, of course, the leg raises and I'm pulling up and I'm just getting fit by doing it as well. So there we are.
I love it. And what I exercise all day long. When I'm not on calls or teaching live, I'm walking. And that's how I'm able to be much more productive. I have other hacks too, and this is a little bit out there, but that's okay. It's me. I carry this around with me all day, and I have to finish this bottle of water I carry with me all day long.
What's the volume? How much is that?
Yeah, so it's a couple liters, but it's got little times on the side, so I know where I am in the day.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it helps.
It's heavy. Plus, it's heavy, right?
A bit, yeah. It's a bit heavy, but I find it really helps because we are 60% water, and diet helps as well. And so I drink bulletproof coffee.
Love those guys.
Yeah, I'm not sponsored by anybody, but bulletproof coffee is great because what you do, and people have been doing what I'm about to say for hundreds of years, is you put a tablespoon of organic grass-fed butter in your coffee or tea. It tastes like you put cream in it, and this gives you this unbelievable ability to focus all day long.
Oh, I'm writing this one down.
It's a biohack that works. Yeah. It's like that movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, right.
That drug, and he has a lot of cognitive ability.
And what was it again? What kind of butter?
So it's just organic grass-fed butter. Yeah.
Oh, just organic grass-fed. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
It sounds out there, but I biohack a lot, and that tends to work okay for me. Yeah.
That is very cool. I like that. Yes. Yeah. Me too. I love all of these little things. For me, right? So I've got my 1 liter. I've got to do 4 of these in a day. That's a gallon.
Exactly.
So that's what I do.
It works, and it's simple too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And look, for the audience's sake, I mean, this is sharpening the saw, right? Stephen Covey's 7th habit. Always sharpen the saw so that we can communicate more effectively, so that you feel good about yourself, right, Chris? Then people feel great listening to you. Yeah. I think that's probably a big secret. You've got charisma. You're coming across great on camera. So the rating of, #1 instructor on Udemy, I think part of it is probably personality as well as content, wouldn't you say?
Well, I think it's also confidence. And so when I was younger, they diagnosed me with a learning disability. They thought they did. The teachers were wrong, I think, whatever. And so I didn't have much confidence. And I was terrified of public speaking. And when I got my job at Goldman Sachs, I was so scared, man. I was so scared to talk because I thought if I'm quiet, they'll think I'm dumb. But if I say something, they'll know I'm dumb. And so what I started doing was I finally said, screw it, let's do it, as Sir Richard Branson said. And I started volunteering in the prison system. And I started, giving speeches during church issues, things that's not a religious thing, and helping out these poor kids. And I had this moment where I went into the prison system at the McGuire Correctional Facility in Redwood City, close to Checkpoint's offices here. And I went in, and the priest was supposed to give the sermon that day, and the priest didn't show up. And so the warden said, Heroin, you're going to give the speech today. And I thought, oh my God, I'm terrified. I can't do that because priests will spend all week long preparing for their speech after the gospel. And so the gospel that day, I'm not going to get too religious on you, I promise you.
Fine, man.
Maybe a bit.
It's fine, brother. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
The gospel that day was generic, have faith and confidence.
Okay.
And so I was supposed to give a speech, and I was standing there. And when you're standing there and you're scared and you feel like your knees are shaking, you never look nervous. Nobody knows. But what I did was I said this. I said, do you believe in God? And all of these inmates with these orange jumpsuits on, at first they were like this, right? And some of them had tattoos that said F you written here. It was scary, right? I said, do you believe in God? And some of them went, yeah. And I said, does God believe in you? And they said, yeah. And then I said, if you don't believe in yourself, then you have to question your faith. And you don't want to do that. And so for me, that was my aha moment. But you have to run to your fears in business and in life. If you're scared of something in business, be it accounting, software, public speaking, so's your competition. So you run towards it and you condition yourself to enjoy it. And that changes everything.
Wow. Okay. You've put a lot. There's so much packed into what you just said there. A couple of things I was typing so I can make sure I get these. What's interesting is going into the prison system, you essentially found a crowd that you could practice on in a certain sense, because it was, while it would have hurt emotionally to fall down in front of that crowd, especially the scary ones, right? It was safe for you at Goldman Sachs because they weren't in the room. right?
Yeah.
So you were sharpening your skill set in a safe environment. And I hadn't thought of that before. So audience members, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Find a safe environment. Could be a church, could be a prison, could be whatever. It doesn't matter. You could have a big family, right? Stand up and give a speech at Sunday meal, right? Put yourself on the spot. Fall down an environment in which it's going to impact you the least. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And then you also said you never look nervous. You're absolutely right. So when I get up in front of the big crowds, I still get nervous, like 5,000, 6,000 people live. You're backstage, all the lights are going, the big intro's happening. Right. So I've got a couple of biohacks to help out with that I've repeated on the show a few times. So I won't go over that again. But what I do find interesting is that I will go on that stage and maybe I'm nervous or somebody else is nervous. The audience doesn't know it. I think we do ourselves a disservice by thinking I'm so nervous.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's all up here. It's like the Rodin sculpture. I think therefore I am. It really is. And you know what, though? If you get up there and you make a mistake, people love you more.
Yeah, as long as you fall on your sword, don't try to hide it.
No,
don't hide your mistakes.
It humanizes you. You know, people love it. People absolutely love it when you're just you. And one thing that kind of changed my life is, and I'll show you this on the back of my keyboard. And oh, by the way, I do Zooms all the time, and you know you got to do that all the time.
That's great. You're ready. You are ready, Chris.
I'll use a moose. That's how we say it in Canada. It's moose. It's not mouse. Okay. So this chart changed my life. On the x-axis is your age, and on the y-axis is give a damn. When you're young, like my kids, you're down here. You have meltdowns at restaurants. You don't give a damn what people think.
Right.
When you're old, you're here as well, because old people don't have confidence problems.
So it's like a bell curve then.
You're right. You know where we're going at. Yeah. The problem is when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s, sometimes you're up here, you give a damn.
Right.
And that limits your success in life. And so I tell people, you gotta get rid of that triangle of despair and not give a damn what anybody thinks of you and live at this level.
How do you not give a damn?
You just gotta tell yourself, I just don't care. You know, I don't care what people think of me, the way I dress, that sort of thing. Mark Benioff is amazing. So is Sir Richard Branson, Oprah, all these great entrepreneurs, because they never gave a damn about what anybody said in terms of them being successful. And I'm sure Gil Shwed is the same way too. A lot of people probably told him you couldn't do it. He was like, screw you. I'm going to create this great company, Checkpoint, and I'm going to live at this level.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's what you got to do. You have to live at this level. Otherwise, what happens is you spend your entire life, you know, trying to impress other people, and you forget to live and enjoy yourself. And I got to show you one more thing here.
All right, go on then.
So I've got this quote on my wall.
I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. Oh yeah, the Michael Jordan, brilliant.
Great, yeah. I love it. And so don't fear failure, because you only have to be right in business one time. And if you give a damn what people think of you, you'll never reach your full potential in life. And people aren't thinking of us anyway. It's all
It is bizarre how people will love us more when we don't give a damn too. Yeah. It's a strange thing though. It's a dichotomy, because I do give a damn. Yeah. I've managed to push myself down on that chart a little bit.
Right.
But I also know that if I push myself down further, people will love it more, which is, you know, it's just like, why aren't we doing that? Totally. I think that's an emotional journey that, you know, people have to go on. And I think we have to trip up. I think you just have to, right? You have to trip up, and then you realize that wasn't so bad when I trip up. Now, by the way, you said moose. Are you Canadian? I know you went to McGill.
I am Canadian, a proud Canadian.
I'm an honorary Canadian passport holder too. As you can tell by my accent, I'm original Brit, but I lived in Calgary for 25 years.
Get out. You worked in the oil industry?
Well, in IT, I was actually an English teacher. So I immigrated to Canada when I was 21 years old, and I was just going to go snowboarding, right? Banff and Lake Louise and Norquay, all the usual hills, right? And I met a girl. So I stayed 25 years, and then I managed to convince that girl to come stateside. So now I'm New York area. But Calgary in Canada. So I got my passport, and I'm very proud to hold that.
Excellent. So remember, it's a boot, not a bout.
Absolutely.
That's my way to say it.
There's a great play, or there was in Broadway, Come From Away, and it was about at 9/11 when they were grounding planes. They grounded planes in it was in Halifax. I forget the name of the town. It'll come to me in a moment. But the cultural difference between the Americans who were grounded there for a week and of course, the rest of the United States. It was a very cute story. The one in particular I remember, and of course it's a true story, but they reenacted it in this play from a book, from actually a journalist who put a book together on it, which was there was something like a couple of thousand people on the tarmac, and this was at a town in the middle of nowhere, Newfoundland. The town was 200 people, one of those towns, right? And so they went running around to grab barbecues so they could feed people at the local school. So they were saying to these American guys, hey, go grab the barbecues from these people's yards. And they're like, you can't just walk into someone's yard. Oh, yeah, you can here. You just, we'll just return it.
Yeah, it's different. The smaller the town, the more people are laid back and trusting and all stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Well, so then I'm curious about your journey. So growing up in Canada, how is it you came stateside? So tell me a little bit about that, and then we're going to come into how you were able to communicate your way to come stateside.
Right. Sure. No, thanks for asking. I appreciate it. So I grew up just outside of Toronto, and went to McGill, worked at Accenture. For 4 years. And then I wanted to come to the States. I wanted to work in finance. I wanted to, work at Goldman. And so I got an MBA from Columbia, and I came down to the States, and I was miserable. And I'll tell you why, with my insecurities. So I was trying to impress people, so I worked at Goldman Sachs. My happiest day was day one. And then I went downhill. And then I went to the hedge fund industry, which is where I met Kip, great guy. And I worked on the left coast here at Citadel, a big hedge fund. And my happiest day was day one. And it went downhill. And then I was like, well, I don't want to be a short-term investor. I want to be long-term. And when I worked at Citadel, that's how I met with Gil. We had a number of one-on-ones when I was only long Checkpoint. And then what happened was something was missing. And I thought I was clinically depressed. And so what I did was I joined the venture capital industry, which was a lot of fun. It was longer term investing. I enjoyed it, but it went downhill after the first day. And I thought something's wrong with me, man. And then I read this great quote from Mark Twain, which is the two most important days in your life are number one, the day you're born, and number two, the day you find out why. And so for me, I started teaching during the evenings at not-for-profits in East Palo Alto, where the high school graduation rate's only 40%. And I loved it. And I felt alive at nights when I would teach. And so as Sir Richard Branson said, I said, screw it, let's do it. And I quit and I started teaching. I never did it for the money. And what happened was I taught these kids in East Palo Alto one Saturday. And all these kids have deadbeat fathers. There's no such thing as a deadbeat mother, in my humble opinion. And I taught them on a Saturday. And I called that one day an entire MBA in one day. And then the next day at home, I put up a camera in my bedroom. I started recording. And my wife's like, honey, that's not happening. I'm like, no, I'm making a course. Yeah. That was a joke. Sorry.
Sorry, man.
I'm making an idiot myself. And you got to tell yourself you don't care. Yeah. So I put up a camera and I started recording myself making this course called Entire MBA in one day. I threw it online the next day, and then it took off 5 years ago. But it was never for the money. I really do believe that if you chase money, you'll lose your dreams and your money. But if you chase your dreams, as long as you don't give a damn what people think of you and you fail a lot, something wonderful happens. Your dreams come true and the money follows accidentally. It always does. And so that's what I do. I teach. I enjoy what I'm doing. My favorite kind of people in the world are my students that are poor, smart, and hungry. They weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth. There's no entitlement. And I want to make a difference and help. That's why I do what I do.
I tell you, so your mission. I want to get to a comment because Nathan Greenspan's dialed in, and thanks, Nathan, for dialing in here. You were saying, you were meant to work for yourself, maybe. Most certainly, exactly. And thanks for the feedback on saying this is great. And obviously, yeah, for sure, this is definitely, Chris. You found your voice, right? You found your vocation. Thanks again, Nathan. We got a cheering squad there. Thanks, Nathan. It's awesome, man. So that's really. What an impactful statement. Something you said a few moments ago. If your target or your goal is money, not only will you not be happy, but you'll lose your money even if you're getting it. Yes. You're right, Chris. Yeah. That kind of hurts, man. That's a beautiful statement. It's a great statement. The truth hurts, right? When truth is meant to be, it's something that you have to go, ooh, right? And it's funny being well, I won't use myself as an example. You certainly can, but I see it time and time again. Executives who their income goes up. I was an English teacher, right? So 26, 26. I remember those two numbers because at 26 years old, I earned $26,000 in that year, and we just had a baby.
Yeah.
So it's like, whoa, what am I going to do? I can't live on 26 grand a year. That's crazy. And so, yeah. But what happens is, as an executive, your income goes up, but you still have no money. Your lifestyle goes up with it. So if we're not chasing, and this is audience members, especially those listening to the archive of the podcast when I drop these, you're like, yeah, what's this got to do with communication? I'll bring it back. Stay with us here. Trust me, because this is gold what we're getting from Chris here today. And Nathan's already agreeing with us. So this is all good. So if we're not going to chase the money, Chris, how is the money turning up? Because we need to eat. And it's not just about eating. Without any reservation, I want to say I want to be as rich as possible. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not hiding that goal.
Yeah.
So how am I able to flip that around so that the passions lead and the money follows?
Yeah. Well, you've got to do what you're most passionate about in life to begin with. And if we influence our children to try to be doctors or, God forbid, lawyers, then when you have small kids, you have small problems. And when you have big kids, you have big problems. You got to follow your heart and do what you were meant to do on this earth and fail a lot. Yes, I know money is important in terms of raising a family, but you just got to fail a lot. Like, for example, any famous author, J.K. Rowling, got turned down by 30 publishers, and she was a single mother, and her job as an assistant. She hated her job, but she kept failing over and over and over again. She didn't give a damn what anybody thought. John Grisham, same thing. Same thing with Agatha Christie, C.S. Lewis. The list goes on and on and on. So you just got to keep trying. And in terms of money, amassing a ton of money, if you chase that your whole life, you're going to be miserable. I mean, there's a lot of people that are miserable on Wall Street. I worked with a lot of them, and I was one of them. And a book that changed my life was The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. And what the Dalai Lama said is the problem with Western society is we sacrifice our health, our entire lives in order to make money. And at the end of our lives, we sacrifice all of our money to maintain our health.
Yeah.
And then we look back and we realize we never really lived to begin with.
Right.
You got to follow your heart. You really do. And when I hire people to work with me in my company, I try to hire people that aren't interviewing for a job. They're passionate about what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, that's fantastic. Let's get to Nathan's comments here. Nathan's saying that ambition is for young people. Generosity is for the wise. But look at this comment. It's kind of interesting. Let's talk about this. Ambitious old men end up building empires of control, and wise men end up repairing reality and creating a better future. Yeah. Well, there's opportunity there, though, isn't there? Right? Because that's the cycle. That is, and be thankful for the fact that we are progressing, that today's old men, yesterday have done things, and we can build off of that. Not all bad, of course. In fact, mostly good, right? We are progressing in the right direction. Okay, let's bring this back to talking about communicating, and then we've got to wrap our show, Chris. I'm really grateful for this. You've taken us into a beautiful direction, because if you can sharpen yourself as a human being, and so when I quit English teaching, I got into sales, okay? And the reason I got into sales, so actually it was the Globe and Mail. Remember that old newspaper in Canada, right? Yeah. So I'm sitting down. My wife, unfortunately, she got a bit sick during pregnancy. Everything's fine, but it meant she had to stop working. And that's when I realized that we can't live on my salary, right? So I read a Globe and Mail article, top 10 paid professions in Canada. And your lawyers and doctors were there. But number 4 was sales and marketing. I thought, well, I can do that without going back to school. So I'll do that in the evenings while I'm teaching. And that's what got me started. Okay. Right. So that moved me into what I'm doing today. And I always credit the fact that I was a teacher with the fact that I got into IT sales, which is just explaining things, right? And what's interesting, this is just happening live now. What's interesting about you is you're a teacher.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. A teacher first, I think, is what you're saying.
Yeah. It's fun for me. I love doing what I'm doing. I love explaining complicated things in easy to understand terms. It's fun for me. I'm passionate about it. If I wasn't, I'd be miserable and probably looking for a job.
Okay. I'm going to wrap. I like to wrap with this same question. So it's what I call your all-in-one summary. So here's an all-in-one summary. Because life is complicated, right? And there are so many different opinions out there. Let's take the subject of diet. This is the usual example I use. There's the paleo diet. That's the one I'm on right now. There's the carnivore diet. There's vegans. There's vegetarians, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So because there's so much information, it's confusing for people who are challenged with weight, let's say. So I sum it up in my all-in-one statement, which is this: food doesn't grow in a cardboard box. So if you can just remember that, that's it. That will eliminate the majority of garbage that you shouldn't be putting in your body. Food doesn't grow in a cardboard box. Eat whatever else you like.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's not, keto. It's not paleo. It's not do this, that, and the other, and drink water and hold your wet finger in the air and take vitamins, right? It's too complicated. Food doesn't grow in a cardboard box. What could you leave our audience with as far as that all-in-one sentence so that they become better communicators, teachers, speakers?
Yeah. I would say the most important thing in business is that business is about relationships first and product knowledge second. A big rookie mistake in business, and I've done it, is get to a meeting and start talking business right away. You have to bond before business. And we all had that point in our lives where we couldn't get a job, we couldn't interview well, and we felt fed up. And we went to an interview and you're like, you know what, man, I'm just going to be myself. And you just talk about the weather, sports, whatever it is, and you got that job. And the reason is because you were able to bond with that person. So how do you bond with somebody that you're going to meet? So let's say I work at Checkpoint in sales and I'm going to meet with, the CTO of some company.
Sure.
So what you can do is this: go to their Twitter profile before the meeting and find out who they follow or what they follow or which companies. If they follow sports, you know what sport to potentially bring up. If they follow entertainment, you can bring that up as well. If they don't have a LinkedIn they don't have a Twitter profile, go to LinkedIn, see who they follow. Last thing, and this will allow you to come up with, chit chat to bond before the meeting. The last thing I'll say about this is a little side note. If you work in sales at Checkpoint, for example, you should go to the Twitter profile of all of your competitors that work in sales at other software companies and see who they follow, because they most likely follow their biggest customers.
Perfect. That's a fantastic tip. It's something that, the beneficiaries of that is going to be 1,800 people very shortly. So I really appreciate that. Chris Ruin, thank you so much. I want to thank you in the green room. So stay right there. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back for another episode. Thanks for tuning in. I'm very grateful to you, Chris. It's really cool.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.